going all in on hyper growth stocks like Palantir and SoFi. Why do I talk about Palantir and SoFi? Because I own those companies, okay? I have an attachment to those companies. I have a bias around those companies. I think they're gonna perform very, very, very well over the next 3 to 10 years, and maybe even longer than that. That's the minimum amount of time I'm planning to hold these shares. But am I going all in on Palantir? Am I going all in on SoFi? I wanna share my allocation percentages in relation to my entire portfolio of Palantir and of SoFi, and I want to talk about a few specifics about that. But first, before we get into all that, if you're new here, I'm Austin. I'm a co-owner of cloud6week.com. I'm also a stock market investor, and like I said, I'm a shareholder of both these companies that I'm talking about, Palantir and SoFi. Two hyper growth companies that I think are well positioned to have an amazing next decade, and I can't wait to be on the ride. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe things don't turn out how I think they will, but I don't think I am. If I did think I was wrong, I obviously wouldn't be in these stocks, and I wouldn't be as heavy exposure in these stocks. Real quick, if you want to hear more about Palantir, SoFi, and a myriad of other stocks and opportunities in the market, consider joining the Patreon, link in the description and the pinned comment area down there. And if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel already, please go ahead and subscribe. It means a ton to me. Help us reach that medium-term goal of 3,000 subscribers. I appreciate you in a major way. Thank you for being here. As a thank you for all that, here's a picture of my dog, Penny, and my two cats, Millie and Luna. Millie's the gray one, Luna's the brown one. All right, let's get into this. Going all in on Palantir, going all in on SoFi. I see some of this happening in my comments section. I see it on YouTube. I see it in different communities around the stock market space. Do I think it's a good idea to go all in on Palantir, to go all in on SoFi? And am I going all in on Palantir and SoFi? The short answer to am I going all in on Palantir or am I going all in on SoFi is no. Absolutely, I am not going all in. I am what I consider to be overweight on both Palantir and on SoFi. Both of these stocks were money losers when I first bought them. They were very small positions for me when I first bought them because they were massive money losers. Palantir now has flipped to profitability. We've had 3 straight quarters in a row of GAAP profits and 2 straight quarters in a row of GAAP profits from operations. I've been rewarded very, very nicely for waiting and being patient and seeing that come up on the profitability. They turned that profitability corner and I was rewarded very nicely as a shareholder. And I don't even think that this move that we've had is going to look impressive when we look out 3 to 10 years from now. That's a large range, but the further out we look, I think the better it's going to look for Palantir. And whenever we look back to see, wow, they were really just turning that profitability corner, they had a big move upward, we'll look back at the stock chart and be like, wow, that was just a tiny little blip on the radar. SoFi, on the other hand, once again was a small position when I was first buying, and I just kept buying for like a very long time, multiple years in a row. I was buying on a sometimes weekly basis with SoFi. Same thing with Palantir, and it ended up turning into a very large position for me. And since we've had such a nice year on a year-to-date basis with SoFi and Palantir, they've both turned into very large positions in my portfolio. Both of them are around 20%. It depends on where stocks move on a daily basis, but both of those stocks are around 20% of my portfolio. So if you look at the total weight, that's 40% in 2 companies in my entire portfolio. That is definitely, in my opinion, overweight in those 2 companies. I think about a 10% allocation into each one, I would be super, super, super comfortable with, and I wouldn't feel anything about it. I wouldn't say it's overweight, but that's what I did. I built them into 10% allocations as it relates to cost basis in my portfolio. And now we've had them run up in a massive way. And as a result, they're closer to 20% rather than that 10% I built them to. I've stopped buying both of these stocks in a massive way. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I bought a very, very small amount of SoFi shares. We had a big drop. I couldn't resist. I bought a very, very small number of shares about 2 weeks ago. So I'm not completely done buying, but I'm definitely not going to be buying any large blocks of shares right now. One of those reasons is I have a lot of shares right now. I feel really good about how many shares I own, and I don't necessarily want to buy any more shares. I also feel really good about my cost basis. So I don't really want to have my cost basis increase increasing while buying Palantir at $16, $17, etc. I don't really want to have my cost basis increasing with SoFi buying at 7, 8, 9, etc. There's definitely a possibility of me buying more shares at those levels, but I'm probably done buying for the most part. But all that said, to me, a really aggressive investment for someone on a growth opportunity, and specifically a hyper growth opportunity where they feel as though they're going to 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x or more of their money, a 10% allocation is pretty dang big on that, okay? Most people would say keep it around 2 to 5%, and 5% is pushing it. I think if you have a strong risk appetite, a 10% allocation can be okay in an individual stock. This all depends on how much money you're investing too. If you only have $1,000 to your name, these type of portfolio structure things really don't matter that much. Same thing with $10,000, but as the amounts increase, it's going to become more and more important to realize, okay, all my money is in these 2 stocks. Maybe I need to add a third. All my money is in these 5 stocks. Maybe I need to add a 6th, etc. But the main reason I think you shouldn't go all in, it's actually not about risk. I think everyone understands the risk that they're taking when they buy a stock. You could lose your butt or you could make a ton of money, okay? I don't think that's the biggest reason that you shouldn't go all in. I think the biggest reason you shouldn't go all in is because there's a near 0% chance that you're not going to be emotionally attached to the company whenever you go all in. Every single person that I've talked to who has a really heavy allocation into a stock like Tesla, a stock like Amazon, a stock like Palantir, a stock like SoFi. I know I'm putting all those very different companies into one umbrella, but at one point, Amazon was not seen as a safe company. Amazon was seen as a very risky company because they were a money loser, but they were an absolute hyper growth beast. All of the people who have a really large allocation, I'm talking like 50%, 60%, up to 100% of their entire portfolio in that one company, they are emotionally attached to it. They're emotionally invested into what happens with the company. Bad situation to be in. What happens if the situation turns south for the company? What are you going to do? Are you going to be able to view it from an objective lens, or are you going to get emotional? Worst thing you can possibly do with a stock is get emotional, because if you love the stock and you're emotionally attached to the stock, they report bad earnings, you're going to make an excuse for them. They report bad earnings the second time, you're going to make an excuse for them. They report bad earnings the third time, you're going to make an excuse for them. Not only are their earnings getting worse, the stock price is probably dropping, and they could potentially be putting the balance sheet in a worse spot. So the next few years could be worse for that company as well. Do I think that's going to happen with Palantir? Do I think that's going to happen with SoFi? No, I don't, but it's always a possibility. We need to wrap our heads around the fact that it's a possibility. Palantir is a risky company. SoFi is a risky company. I would say Palantir is slightly less risky because we have profits. We have income from operations being positive. SoFi does not have that yet. But it's important to realize it's totally possible for these business models to take a turn for the worse. Maybe it's for a few quarters. Maybe it's for a very long time and the share price gets crushed and potentially this company goes all the way to bankruptcy. Like I said, I don't think that's going to happen with Palantir. I don't think that's going to happen with SoFi. It obviously didn't happen with Tesla. It obviously didn't happen with Amazon. If you haven't been in the market that long, you wouldn't know, but that was a big conversation around Tesla for years, was that they're going to go bankrupt. That was a big conversation around Amazon for years. It's like, why are they going with this asset heavy model? They could just go with an asset light model and worry about the software side. You know what? They ended up figuring it out. Amazon shareholders have been rewarded in an insane way. Tesla shareholders like myself have been rewarded in an insane way, okay? The company didn't go bankrupt. Those who were betting long got really nice gains. I do think the same thing's going to happen with Palantir and SoFi, but I'm not going to go all in, because if it does go south, I don't want to be the bag holder, right? I don't want to be the guy that made excuse after excuse after excuse because I was emotionally invested into the company, and now I'm stuck with a 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, maybe 90% loss on my shares. Definitely not a situation I would like to find myself in, so I am not going to go all in because I think it's going to increase the chances of me becoming emotionally invested and not being able to be objective anymore. Anytime I see something bad in the earnings for Palantir, anytime I see something bad in the earnings for SoFi, I'm going to talk about it. I got a lot of hate for talking about the bad revenue growth that we've seen, the 17% 15% and the 13% with Palantir. And I got a lot of hate for the technology platform with SoFi. 21% contributable profit dropped on a year-over-year basis from the tech platform. That's definitely not what we want to see from a hyper-growth company. From Palantir side, we definitely don't want to see 17% or 13% revenue growth from a company we're considering to be a hyper-growth company, right? So I'm always going to call a spade, and anything that's going to stop me from being objective with a company I'm owning, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm always going to stay objective. I'm always going to keep it 100% actually accurate to the information from the fundamental standpoint. And then on the other side of that, there's other opportunities in the market that I want to take advantage of. There's a lot of turnaround plays in the market right now that are great dividend payers that I think are disgustingly undervalued in relation to the S&P 500 that have more earnings growth potential over the next year to 18 months than the S&P 500. And I want to be able to take advantage of those. If I'm 100% all in on Palantir, 100% all in on SoFi, or if I'm 50-50 split on the two, I really can't go in on any other opportunities in the market that I think might be interesting to me, like all these solar stocks that have dropped recently. If you want to hear about all the opportunities I'm looking at, join the Patreon, link in the pinned comment down there and in the description area, okay? Much love to all my Palantir shareholders, SoFi shareholders. Appreciate you guys in a massive way for being here on a regular basis, checking out the videos. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Are you going all in on any of these companies? Are you having a massively huge allocation to SoFi, to Palantir, or any other hyper growth company out there? I want to hear about it. Do you feel as though you can stay emotionally uninvested and stay objective even if you have a really large position? I want to hear about it. I appreciate you being here in a major way. Let me know in the comments. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.